Yes.
All right, well, welcome everybody to Tuesday of MRASH. We are going to jump right in with our first panel, lessons learned from Stand Up for Grain Safety Week and other virtual events. Our panelists are Catherine Rylatt, Ellen Dyson, Ann Grievenkamp, Barb Grove, and Dr. Salah Issa. So Catherine, if your group wants to go ahead and get started, we will turn things over to you.
All right, good morning. Well, this is Barb Grove, and you see my bio over there. I want to get started and introduce our group. We're a group of collective industry, I'll say enthusiasts. Experts is never a good word, because we don't know everything, but we have a love for agriculture and a love for safety. And that's what brings us together in a group called the Alliance. Catherine, go ahead, next screen. We're going to talk to you today about how to put together how we put together that Stand Up for Grain Safety Week, and just kind of our experience with some other virtual events. In this day and age that we are in, hybrid and virtual events are ever so more important to keep getting our word out. And a key thing for our group is this: everyone deserves to go home from work each day. So that's why we have come together to continue to have that focus for our industry. There's lots of education out there, but to keep using our voices and keep using our experiences to keep that on the forefront of everybody's mind. Go ahead. So we have 4 panelists today. Ellen with CS Cash. Salah from the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, Catherine Rylatt with Grain Handling Safety Council, and myself. I work for Central Valley Ag as my full-time job, but I am also the Jeeps International President. Go ahead, Catherine. So about the stand-up. The stand-up is a week focused on grain safety and grain safety hazards. And it is sponsored by an alliance. And so you can read this, but it's a collaboration of other industry groups and organizations that come together to commit and put a focus on safety for agriculture. So about the alliance, this is an alliance through the Occupational Safety and Health Administration and the Grain Elevator and Processing Society, Grain Handling Safety Council, and the National Grain and Feed Association signed a collaborative agreement to work together and focus on needs in our industry. And this agreement was signed in 2020 as the current group. So a little bit of history. In 2017, the Stand Up for Grain Safety event was actually started out to be a local chapter meeting for the Grain Elevator and Processing Society in their Great Plains chapter in Kansas with OSHA Region 7. We had about 900 participants in that, and it was some local meetings and focuses, but also we did some national webinars, and kind of it took off. It became a breed of its own as we started promoting our event. It kind of went national. Hence, in 2018, NGFA signed an alliance with OSHA to start again this full national promotion of this as an event. And we held a kickoff event in Missouri, and GHSC that year started some daily learning sessions for the group. 2019, Jeeps and GHSC helped plan another virtual event, another in-person event. And we held that at our Asmark facility in Illinois, so that we had a hands-on experience with people. We invited from local grain companies and local cooperatives. We had some FFA chapters there that were local. And again, then also offered daily learning events. In 2020, our 4 groups came together as a fully signed alliance. And we were going to host an in-person kickoff, but 2020 blew up on everybody, didn't it? So we had to go to, we'll say it was our plan B, but, it became plan A. So we did a dedicated website that the University of Texas Arlington had built for us at that time. And or in 2017. And then in 2020, we started taking this website over ourselves. And again, GHSC put together daily webinars. So that is, again, when we really focused on, here's our learning. So every day of this focus week, we did a learning event. 2021 wasn't showing to be a whole lot more promising in our ability to hold in-person events. Every state, every organization, every company had their own regulations or rules in place for keeping our people safe with COVID. So we said, okay, from the start, we need to have a hybrid event. And so we did have that as our plan A. We knew we want to get in front of people. We want that face-to-face learning if we possibly can. But we also know we want to keep that greater impact and be able to spread it across the United States. So hence our hybrid learning and our virtual event. Go ahead, Catherine. So something really important with any event is you need to start up, what are my goals? We need to keep ourselves focused. We wanted to promote large participation in our stand-up week. And we wanted to promote this across a wide range of audience. We didn't just want, whether it was a safety director or a manager sitting in a building somewhere, we wanted to educate those boots on the ground people, those people that are in the thick of it. And then also promote our agencies, our groups that are all in it. Let's face it, we all are looking for resources, and we work on grants and we work on donations. So you need to promote yourself a little bit too. Go ahead. So our vision is we needed a hybrid event. We wanted to continue having free learning opportunities so individuals could access these. And we integrated our online platform in sharing and registration. We enhanced our website so that we could gather information. Go ahead. Desired outcome. Again, we're going to stress this numerous times. It was important for us that the boots on the ground workers really got an impact out of this. Those people that are in the hazards, we wanted to increase that registration and our web traffic and generate a buzz, an eagerness, a participation to say, oh, I want to be part of the stand-up week. And again, to recognize the alliance and the resources that came together to us by pooling our knowledge, our expertise all together. So I'm going to hand this over to Catherine to talk a little bit more about our planning.
Great. Thank you so much, Barb. I'm going to turn my video on here. And good morning, everybody. I'm happy to see you all here. And I want to have a big shout out to Gail, because having converted our event in less than 6 weeks in 2020, I understand the amount of work that she had to do to convert this this conference into a virtual event at the last minute. And I am sad because I really do like the Kirkwood that we couldn't meet there. But so I'm going to talk just a little bit about some of the planning and key features of the stand up. I'm not really going to read all the priorities, but our main one was that we wanted a good audience experience and we wanted to be engaging and meaningful, inclusive, and participatory. Those were some key words that we honed in on when we started planning. We knew it needed to be informative, education, training. We knew that we had to build the anticipation for people to commit time to doing it. The whole premise of Stand Up Week is to commit time to training and safety. And we really needed to, emphasize that through all of this. And, one way to do that is to bring in some emotional investment through personal stories and success stories. So we looked at how we can incorporate those. We wanted to make sure it had value, provide an experience they couldn't get another way, reflect the commitment of the Alliance to, safety and to this week. Cohesive messaging, we knew that was important. We knew that because we were going to do a hybrid and it was going to be virtual, that technology and ease of use was a huge thing to consider, because in the grain industry or in the agricultural industry, you have people who on the whole continuum of how familiar they are with technology, and then some type of reward or recognition for being participating, and so those were our planning priorities, and these are some of the lessons that we learned that we wanted to share, and they are, it's important to be on the same page when you're planning something and what your priorities are. And that is always easier said than done. But we would reiterate them a lot, especially, if we thought, we were getting off track. We established one guiding principle early on, one guiding priority, and that was audience experience. So everything we planned and everything we did, we measured against that. Was it going to enhance the audience experience? And sometimes some of the things you want to do or some of the things you may need to do don't always do that. But we tried to make sure that was always a number one priority. We appointed what I call a guardian of that priority, and that happened to be our event planner. She was very good at always saying, is this helping the audience? Is this giving it the experience you want? And I have found that is has been one of our most successful things, and we use her for other events, and she continues to say that, and will be the first one to tell us not to do something or whatever if she doesn't think we're prepared or she doesn't think it's going to enhance that event. I think the other thing we found, just as in any group, sometimes things get hijacked or hashed and rehashed and rehashed. And so trying to find ways to eliminate that, it helps you move forward and progress and not get frustrated. But, that's, just part of planning and part of being in a group, but it's something to always be aware of. Preparation. There was a lot of preparation, and we couldn't stress that enough. Practice, practice, practice. Most people don't realize it, but we do practice. We practice with our trainers. We practice on the technology. We practiced with our event coordinator. She would make a script for each day's event, outlining who was doing what and when, and that was wonderful because it kept us on track. always have a plan B. We weren't so good at that sometimes, and would have to, kind of hurry up and figure out what we were doing. But having a plan B is probably one of the best things you can do. And I think what I learned is to simplify some things like, we sent out individual certificates, and that was a lot of work when you consider how many participants there were. So finding ways to simplify things so you can, move on and get done quicker. And I am losing my voice a little bit, and I do apologize. And I accidentally have a double slides here. So after we kind of did the planning, we looked at what our key features were and what helped make it a success and things that we've tried to do in other events since then. But for the stand-up, it was having that dedicated website. And we really, a big shout out to Jeeps, because they're the ones who put it up in less than 6 weeks. Excuse me. And we've been maintaining it and, adding resources as we can. The event coordinator, this was a person who has worked in the industry for many years, has organized big events and small events and virtual events and everything. So being able to contract with her and have her help us with this was a godsend to all of us. And even if you can't do that, I think it's, what we found out is having somebody who is the lead, the one in charge, the one who's going to coordinate it and kind of keep everybody on track is, really important. She would make a checklist, and we, like I said, had the scripts, and, she was always like, okay, this has to be done or whatever. And with all of us being so busy and wearing multiple hats and doing multiple things, that really helped us in our planning process and in the implementation of the stand-up and other events that we've had. I think one of the big key areas we really worked on was promotion, having a consistent message. We had social media posts ready to go, all sorts of graphics that people can use, and that was all on the website and a design. One of the things that Jeeps had done the year before is helped us kind of focus on branding the stand-up, using the same logo, using the same tagline, same colors, things like that. The other real important thing was that we wanted, again, this goes back to knowing your audience, one-stop registration and one link to use. They get confused easy. They may not have access to a lot of technology. They may not be familiar with it. A lot of times during stand-up week, they're logging in on maybe the TV in the break room or a computer in the break room and letting several people look at it. So just having one link, one place to register made it easy for them. And then, of course, we enhanced our Zoom platform so we could have more people. We used multiple trainers with diverse backgrounds to kind of break things up and give it some variety. We had tried that earlier with a couple learning sessions, and people really liked that because it was fast paced and, you had different people talking. We had a lot of variety in content between PowerPoints and videos and live demonstrations and things like that. Again, we had guest moderators, which I really liked because I think it gave different people a chance to be recognized for their support and their help. We tried to incorporate a lot of interaction through polls, chats, question and answer, demonstrations, and then we had a lot of production support. We always have people in the background, probably more than people realize, but somebody who's taking care of technology, requests or issues, somebody who's monitoring chats and questions and stuff like that. And again, I think the lessons learned from this was the moderator is really essential, I think, in any type of virtual event. And I'm just going to throw a shout out to Barb because she just moderated another series for us. And her knowledge was really helpful to stimulate conversation, get questions and answers going. And when we lost our speaker, she was able to kind of pick up and move on. So finding that is very helpful. Um, uh, One of the other things is that I'm going to go back. I'm sorry. Again, knowing your audience, do you give them a unique link or a common link? How do you want to do that? How do you want to set up registration? That was really important. We did send out unique links, but people were asking for the links. So we sent it out during Harvest Safety. And then we had like 30 Jody Brooks on Zoom. So if you do have a unique link, you have to be aware of that and teach people how to change their name. Another thing, a lot of people are like, do tape sessions, like demos and stuff. That way, if something goes wrong, you can fix it. And that is true. I mean, there's a lot to be said about, making sure you can get things done correctly. The advantage of a live demo is it does help people feel a little bit more connected, I think. So, you kind of have to weigh which is most important. And then the other thing we've learned is to always plant questions and chat comments and stuff. Have somebody doing that because that stimulates more conversation and more questions. And I'm hoping I stayed within my time limit here, Salah. Trying to talk fast. Next up is Dr. Salah Isa, and he is going to talk about some of the technology issues that we had to work through and go through.
Thank you, Catherine. And we can jump into the next slide. Catherine did an awesome job highlighting, in a sense, all our thought processes into these. And I'm just going to spend a quick time to hone in into some of these. So that for example, choosing the platform, that was one of the biggest questions we had to choose. And going back to our ethos of, we're trying to make this user-friendly. It has to be easy on the user. And to do that, we quickly realized that there's a strong familiarity with Zoom among our users. So that was one of the biggest reasons we went through Zoom over any other platform, is that we knew that users had in small settings or in other settings had some sort of experience with Zoom. And then when we decided, okay, Zoom, that's where we're going to go. Should we do Zoom meeting, Zoom webinar? That started to be, in a sense, as we jumped into this, that was confusing. How are they same? How are they different? And going through it, we realized with Zoom webinar, you can have a lot larger number of attendees. In Zoom meetings, you can get up to 1,000. We realized we're not going to get up to 1,000 per session. So that was comforting to our end. Though at the end of it, going back to our ethos, our goal was to make this a user experience. And to do that, we had to make it more interactive. And we felt, given all things, considerations between both, that when it comes to Zoom meetings, at the very least, you're interacting with your audience, you can see others, we can unmute the audience at later point of time, have them talk to each other, we can do breakout rooms. So at the end of everything, all our considerations, we decided to go with Zoom meetings. If you can go to the next slide. And then that leads us to our next question. Okay, so we're doing Zoom, but how should we get people on that platform? So we had a couple options of them. For example, we had Eventbrite, we had Zoom. With Zoom registration, and this applies back in April, things have changed quite rapidly in the technology dimension. But when we tested it, and when an attendee registers, they're getting these unique links. But the problem is that you can't share these links. Everybody must register. And if you try to share them, you're going to end up with multiple people with the same name. And that's something that Catherine alluded to later on in our Harvest Safety Week. We went with the Zoom registration. We sent out that wrong link, and we ended up with a lot of Jody Brooks in one of our Zoom meetings. With Eventbrite, we found out, at least from the marketing perspective, to be a better platform. And it enabled us to use just one Zoom link that both the host, the audience, they can all use that one link. It will use their own account information. So they didn't have to play with that or mess with that. It was a lot more simpler. So that's what we did for Stand Up Week. And one thing that we did struggle in the back end is that at that time, Eventbrite didn't have the integration with Zoom. This has changed, like when I looked at it recently, but that's part of that technology is that, and part of the reason why it's so important to set up that ethos of what you're trying to do, because as this technology is rapidly evolving, it's important not to get stuck into a certain way of doing things. It's important to reevaluate what technology you have at the moment and see how it meets our need for user-friendly user interactivity. Next slide, please. So a couple of lessons learned that we've learned is that take some time to look at your Zoom settings, whether you're going to do a meeting or a conference or a webinar. Especially if you're doing a meeting, it's important to make sure that your safety settings are on. Make sure that attendees start muted with no video. Enable the waiting rooms. Do your recording transcriptions as you want. This becomes crucial because even if later on in the meeting you set up a security where everybody's muted, when people are joining in the first time, it's really at that default setting. So if you created that Zoom meeting and you did not say mute at start, they actually can start. When they join, they will not be muted. But after you individually mute them, then they won't be able to unmute. And another big thing is bringing your speakers early. So we had asked all our speakers to come ahead of each one of our days, 30 minutes ahead of time. And that gave us time to set up our speakers, make sure they're all co-hosts, so they have permissions to share, permissions to do what they need to do. It allows our speakers that one last run. So we used to have each speaker open their slides and quickly go through the slides. That allows us to catch any typos or anything missing and make sure everybody's on the same boat. Also, if they had done any audio and any audio or videos, we test that and we show them how to set up their sound so that we can all hear that sound and it's not coming from the background sound. Another, next slide.
Okay.
Thank you, Catherine. So another important thing is, as we mentioned, is interactivity. And that is something we try to bake in our stand-up week. And Ellen is going to talk about later on how we did it with our kickoff event. But in general, we tried to make sure that even though these were basically 2-hour events, that they are broken apart in multiple ways. And so, for example, we did frequent polling. We did polling between each speaker, kind of to break up that flow and keep people engaged. We had dedicated individuals, so our moderators, our team on the background, we were constantly trying to engage the audience on the side and track questions with them. So that's another thing that we've done. We've thought about breakout rooms, but we did not end up. We were very close to implementing it, but then we realized that we never gave our moderators and our speakers a chance to test them out and get familiar with that. And again, based back on our ethos, make sure that you implement something that's familiar and easy to use and interactive, And we realized that even though it meets all the criteria, we're not being fair to our own speakers because they have not tested breakout rooms. So we decided against doing that. Another thing is that another side thing that we learned is that when it comes to polls, all our co-hosts have the chance to end polls. And so that was one of our lessons learned, is that when you start a poll, that teach your co-host how does that poll layout look like? What are the necessary buttons that they can click to either minimize or close out of it? And next slide. So quite a few helpful tips from this, and this is in a sense expanding upon what Catherine had discussed. One of the most important aspects is developing a script and practicing. So in our scripts, we really went to the detail. We went minute by minute. What is each person going to say? How are they going to say it? When are the slides going to start? When does a moderator get involved? When does the Zoom control guy get involved, and so on. So, and that helped us start out really smoothly. We also included a timer and buzzer at the beginning of each one. I don't know if you remember that countdown from 10 to 0. That served multiple points. It helped us as speakers and hosts to get ready, but also more importantly, since we allowed individuals to come into our meetings 15 minutes early, it kind of is a way to grab people's attentions back again. An important role and probably overlooked is that you need to have multiple people on the backgrounds. So I was working on making sure the polls were launched, the screens were shared, and our what's it called? Our introduction slides are set up and all that correctly. At the meantime, we had our moderators who were just heralding and working with our speakers, and then we had other members in the backgrounds that were active at the chat, and that's crucial. It's crucial to have a team working on this together, and that reduces a lot of the distractions and makes it flow very smoothly. As highlighted by Catherine, our number one is minimize the number of links used. That is something I think a lot of audience members have struggled with other conferences and stuff like that. I went to a conference where we're listening to poster sessions, and they had a link for each poster session. So at each poster session, you listen to it for 5-6 minutes, you get out, you join another one, and it's very disruptive as a flow. So that is something, and there are limitations with that. We know that some of the conferences, they're limited based on their platforms to create these multiple links. But that goes back to the thought process. How can we minimize those number of links? If you can imagine, each link is basically a meeting room in this grand hotel. The more links you have, the more chance people get lost trying to find that meeting space. So that was a lesson learned for us, and we found very successful for us. Also important is to check internet speeds of your speakers beforehand and see if they have any issues, and strongly suggest that our speakers to log in through Ethernet to maintain the connectivity and maintain the quality of the presentations. And we sometimes there's limitations on this. So as I mentioned earlier, every 30 minutes before each one of our meetings, we had all our speakers, we tested their audio, we tested everything. And sometimes everything is great, the mics are working great, but you start the presentation and suddenly the mic cuts off. That's part of the conundrum with technology in a sense. And one thing that we found as a solution is that we have to always build alternate communication with our presenters. So for example, we have our mobile phones, we're chatting, we're texting, and so on, and that helps our presenters know and be aware of what's going on. And yes, I think that's basically it on my part. I'm gonna take it to Ellen. Ellen is gonna talk about the national kickoff and give more details on how that very successful event occurred.
Yes, thank you, Salah. And it is truly a pleasure to be here this morning talking about this particular event and working with the Alliance. I want to start by saying how grateful we were to be included in the stand-up week, and particularly the kickoff. And I want to talk very, very quickly about how that came together and perhaps some of our lessons learned as well. Go ahead, Catherine. Next slide. Thank you. So I'm going to talk about the nitty gritty here. So location. When we're talking about holding a hybrid event, the first thing we thought about is we need the right location to do that. And when I'm speaking about a hybrid training event, I mean, we're going to have, of course, those that are joining us virtually, but we would also have on-site learners as well. So we looked around, and within 30 miles of Omaha, we found what we thought was the perfect location. And as it turned out, it was. And this was the INRIC facility, which is the Eastern Nebraska Research Extension and Education Center. And this is the division of University of Nebraska Lincoln's Institute of Ag and Natural Resources Center. So they house not only the extension center there, but also the research that comes, a lot of the field research that comes out of the University of Nebraska Lincoln. It's about 9,000 acres. It's a great big site, lots of row crops, lots of domestic animals. They have a research and support staff, which was essential. When we started talking to them, they were able to jump in and assist because they understood the mission. And
Alan, your sound just disappeared. Let's see if we can get Ellen back. So are you texting Ellen?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
So if the panelists try to turn their cameras off, that might offer a bit more bandwidth.
Okay. We can all do that. I am going to go ahead and maybe advance the slide a little bit and see if Ellen can get back in. She can come back and talk about NRAC itself because I can't talk about that. Think as she was saying, NRAC, you know, they were wonderful to work with. They had the equipment there. They were willing to do this. They put in time and effort. They already have the safety culture in place. And you know, obviously it was last year and COVID was still, you know, something we needed to consider. So they, you know, were able to put their COVID protocols in place and still have people there for in-person learning. Again, we were going to have a kickoff event there in 2020, and it was a beautiful plan. I mean, you know, it was very sad we couldn't do it because they have the capacity to hold a large number of people. So we were very, very thankful that they were willing to do this in an environment that's been, you know, very hard the last couple of years to work in. And Ellen, are you back yet?
Ellen is not back yet.
Okay. Now, one of the things that they did to help us have this in-person event was they invited a lot of their workers to be participating in it as our live audience. And that, again, that live audience, that hybrid is really what helped people engage a lot.
I'm back, Catherine.
Great. Do you want me to back up a slide?
No, I do not.
let's
We're
keep
gonna-
going.
We're gonna go full speed ahead. And you guys, this is, you may think we planned that to show you how things can happen, you know? Yeah, well, we didn't.
Yeah.
So we know that the training team was obviously the heart of our kickoff. Catherine, you can advance.
Okay.
And we have, not only did we have experts in the field, which when you, Catherine will review some of those, but we were so, we were really wanting to make sure that the people that we invited to be on site were dynamic folks, because we wanted to make this that interactive feeling that you are going to be right there with us, even though you may be 1,000 miles away. So we wanted our trainers, and I think we succeeded in finding trainers that were very, very dynamic and not only experts, but were able to get the message across very effectively. And these folks had to be willing to be on site, because we wanted this, we wanted this to be, like I said, that impactful interactive experience. So they had to come to Nebraska to train. And we also were still under very strict COVID protocols. So they had to be willing to follow those protocols. And all of our trainers were able to do that. Catherine? And then the technology, next slide. And here is where I think we really excelled. Risto Ratianen provided this list of the technology he used to bring those virtual people right into our realm. They could actually probably see some of these demonstrations better than the folks we had sitting on site because of this video. And audio. And I will tell you that was essential. The sound and the video, I think anyone that was part of this would have to agree that it was exceptional. Here is what he brought to the game. Now, with that said, I put Risto's contact here if you want to talk to him more about how to bring this kind of an experience for the trainings that you're doing. And with that said, again, I think you can do it with materials that or equipment that's a little less cost than what he has. We are very fortunate that he is in a band and does the sound for this band, and also has a lot of expertise in video. And so when you're thinking outside the box of doing these hybrid type events that are going to be very impactful, you know, around here, you don't have to throw a rock very far to hit someone that's in a band. So there you go, find your own guy that plays the bass and ask if you can use that equipment perhaps for your demonstrations. You don't have to own all of this equipment, but I think the knowledge to use it comes with the experience as well. So next slide. And then our on-site attendees. And Catherine, you can advance again. We really, really felt that this was important to have folks on site. Not only does it make those folks who are virtual feel more connected, but also having these folks there, we were able to use them for demonstrations. They also asked probably more questions than the folks did. And I'm not sure that's quite true, but they were very interactive and asked a lot of questions, which may have then promoted our virtual folks to ask questions and interact. And we did have the cameras there so that when people were talking virtually, our on-site people could see them. And then when folks on site were asking questions, Risto was able to scan in and have them their faces up for the folks that were virtual. So it felt much more like an in-person, something that we're all striving for right now in these times. And Catherine, next slide. And now we're going to the fun part. Catherine is going to talk about the results and some future considerations for our stand-up events.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I'm gonna get on here. So we were thrilled with the results. I'm going to say it was a little bit hard at times to count the numbers just because of we did put user experience first, so we didn't always have a name to go with a login. But from the ones that we could count that were unduplicated, there were over 3,500 participants during the week and over 1,000 just in the kickoff itself. And we were just astounded by that. And I do want to say that I think having that technology and Risto having all those cameras and the microphones, I mean, it just, people were blown away, and it made it like something you would watch on TV or whatever. It was very neat. This just shows, we asked if they were a manager or an employee. So this just shows that. And, about normal, not everybody answers that question. We did not require them to answer that question on the registration. That would be something that I think we would do in the future. But it's usually always split, third. So not any real surprises. We were able to ascertain that we had over 300 unique companies on there, over 20 different government agencies and 24 different educational institutions. So again, a great mix of people and facilities. Over 43 states participated. And a big shout out to Illinois because they had the most unique Zoom logins. We had a really good partner with the Grain and Feed Association of Illinois, who pushed a lot of information out. And of course, U of I extension and all of that. But Kansas had, 57. So it was just neat to see that we had, 43 states. That was pretty amazing. But what was more amazing was 24 countries participated. We did not expect that. We figured we'd get some people from Canada because they're our neighbors. But we had people from all over the world, as you can see. And that was truly exciting to all of us. And it makes us stop to think, especially with the commercial grain company. And I know Barb can talk to this because Jeeps is international. Grain is everywhere. There are storage problems everywhere. There are safety issues everywhere. And, being able to deliver information that they can take back, it is kind of a neat feeling. And one of the things we're looking at, one of those lessons learned, is being able to give them the transcripts of the videos and the speakers and everything, and let them translate it into their language that they need. We can give them the information. It's very costly to translate things. So if we can, give them a virtual conference and a virtual presentation and record it and give it to them, they can translate it. They can subtitle it or whatever, or just use it as a teaching tool with their people. But that was kind of an exciting thing. This, I'm not going to go over this in depth, but this is the reach that we had in terms of promotion. And it started out with, the 4 people in the Alliance. We had GHSC. We have the smallest listserv, although it's grown a lot this year. NGFA, Jeeps has one of the largest, and OSHA. OSHA was really good, put it in quick takes, put it on Twitter several times. Jeep sent out emails. They had it on their social media, so did NGFA. And like I said, part of that was we provided everybody a social media kit. We pre-made tweets for people. We had graphics for them, so it wasn't hard to put it out there. What was really nice is, again, there's a lot of alliance partners, and I know that the NIOSH centers put things out and can't track secondary. But every time that we send something to one of you and you send it on, that just helps everybody. So I love doing that. GrainNet is a huge supporter. They really did a great job promoting it, as you can see. And then Lamar Advertising has an alliance agreement with OSHA. Now it's not called an alliance anymore. They're like the masters. But they will give you free space on their billboards that aren't being used at that time. So we made a decision a few years ago to stay with the digital billboards. And, it may play for one day, it may play for a week. It could be in different parts of the country, but it's fun. And then we always try and tell people, hey, take pictures and tell us where you saw the billboard. But they're a great partner because they're really able to promote this national event and help us get it out there. And this year we got some follow-up calls from that, people there was a place in Mississippi that wanted to do something, and, a radio station that called from, I believe it was Louisiana, that called to do an interview because they saw a billboard. So that was a really neat outcome. And then again, lessons learned, future considerations. I'll wrap up here in a couple minutes. I call it, you cannot always have your cake and eat it too. One of the things that we really found out, and we can continue with whatever virtual format we're using, is sometimes to get the audience experience you want, you may have to give up something. And for us, it was giving up some of the I call paperwork, some of the record keeping that we would normally use for OSHA. So, and that goes back to what is your main priority, and what can you give up or are willing to give up. One of the things that we need to always work on, everybody does, is sometimes we get complacent, the trainers get complacent, and we're like, oh, we don't need to practice because we've done it a million times before. And then of course that'll be the one time something totally different happens. So just being aware of that and making sure that we still have those practices. Another big lesson we learned was about follow-up. Like I said, we sent out certificates to everybody who attended every learning session in the kickoff, and it was over 3,000 certificates that we personalized, and that was not a good use of time. And the thing is, they wanted them. They had specifically requested, because before we did not do that, and people have been saying, well, we'd like to have some record so that we can say, we got this training, but using an easier method to do that. Like I said, practice, keeping it simple, engaging people at the onset. Moderators are usually pretty good at that. Where do you live, or what's your favorite thing, or whatever. I think that's really important. One thing that came out of a follow-up survey that we asked people to fill out when they register for the stand-up is, employers want to be able to register multiple people at one time, and one place. We haven't quite figured that out yet, so that's something we want to work on. But again, it goes back to that ease of use, and that especially if you want those boots on the ground people, they're going to be doing it through a break or through a collective Zoom that the employer has. And then one of the things that we've heard from some of the presenters, they're used to doing in-person training, and they miss being able to interact with people and walk around the room. And, some of them are uncomfortable, they feel uncomfortable sitting and just in front of the computer and not moving. Others know that they can get up and demonstrate something. So it's like working with the presenters and trying to help them modify their in-person to a virtual format. And at the other time, sometimes presenters get just a little bit too relaxed or too casual, and you want to say, you want to kind of keep it all the way that you envision it to be. So it's just communicating with the presenters and working with them. And like I said, we've used Jody Brooks as our event coordinator. She's really good. She's been able to give them a lot of pointers and stuff. So, and then the last big lesson learned, and I think Barb can talk to this too, is we had active chats all during stand-up week, which is really good. And that's what you want. You want people to chat and you want people to ask questions. However, the downside to that is sometimes people don't always maybe give relevant or correct information. So it's having people dedicated to, kind of monitoring those chats and being able to maybe, provide a reference to a standard or regulation or something if maybe the information isn't quite right. We were very lucky that a lot of our GHSC members were on during the stand-up, and a couple of them are regulation gurus, I like to call them. So they could, they were putting that information in there. But it was something that, we certainly didn't anticipate. And you just want to be aware, because everybody does things different, and a lot of times the states are different. And so one of the things we found was just saying, well, maybe that's if this is a state regulation, let people know that, let them know it's a state, not a federal or whatever. So I think with that, I would like to open it up for questions or discussions. And I have not been monitoring that chat. So if people have anything, I take it, Josie, are you our moderator for this session?
I am. Thank you all for that very informative presentation. I think your lessons learned are certainly things that a lot of us can learn from as we continue to offer programs online, and obviously have to be flexible and perhaps pivot at the last minute. So I think you offered a lot of really good recommendations for offering interactive online experiences, and then also how do we transition back to in-person, on how do we offer those really high quality hybrid or combination in-person on online events. So thank you so much, everybody. I think there were a couple of comments in the chat, but I think Barbara did a nice job of communicating with those individuals. Have follow-up questions, I would encourage you to use the Q&A button near the chat. And I think we're going to go ahead and get just because of time, excuse me. So if you could stop sharing, and we will offer our next panelists the opportunity to share their screen. Our next panel is titled, You've Got Mail, Email Strategies That Truly Deliver Results by Helping You Engage with Your Audience. Our panelist, Melissa Pluckelman, is the outreach specialist at the National Farm Medicine Center. She has a background in agricultural education, a bachelor's degree from the University of Wisconsin at River Falls. She has been the outreach specialist for the National Farm Medicine Center for the last 4 years. Megan Shashow is the outreach director and center coordinator for the Upper Midwest Center for Agricultural Safety and Health, based at the School of Public Health at the University of Minnesota, where she works extensively in outreach and community engagement and emerging issues since 2017. And Jenna Davidson is the education content specialist for the Progressive Ag Foundation. She's responsible for the curriculum development for the Progressive Ag Safety Day program. And she strongly believes the program's mission and strives to help provide solutions to the problems using hands-on education and resources to prevent injuries and fatalities among youth. I will put their full bios in the chat. I modified them for time, but I would invite Melissa to, or whomever, to share your screen and have the floor.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Josie. And thank you to everyone who is joining us today. Jenna, if you want to start sharing at any time, since you will be our first presenter, but what I will tell you, a roundtable is a time to discuss, share ideas, learn new things, and really to network. It's really hard to do a roundtable virtually, but Jana, Megan, and I think that we've come up with a way. So the topic of our roundtable is using email to reach your audience. In this day and age, we send emails like we hand out candy on Halloween. With the recent pandemic and going virtually, we probably send out even more emails. And with that, that also means that everyone is receiving more emails. How do you keep up? But a better question is, how do you reach your audience in a constructive and effective way through email if they're receiving 500,000 emails every day? Heck, every minute, it feels like. But we know a lot of people are using social media to reach their audience, but today we're going to focus specifically on email because that has not gone away and it is not going to go away. So the outline of this roundtable will be as such. Progressive Ag Safety Foundation, UMASH, and the Children's Center all use email to reach their audiences. We are going to share some of our insights on email and some of our success stories and a few challenges. When we are done sharing short little blurbs about what we do, we're going to do some chat storms. And that's how we're really going to do some discussion in the second half of this roundtable. So we ask that you be prepared to type into your chat, be ready to unmute yourself, ask questions, discuss with us. Jana, Megan, and I agree that there's always more to learn. And what better way to learn than by discussing with our colleagues and other experts in the field, which is each one of you that are at this roundtable today. I was going to read everyone's bio, but thanks to Josie, I don't have to. So Jana is going to start us off today. Jana is with Progressive Ag Safety Foundation, and she's going to tell us how they use email to reach their audience.
Thank you so much, Melissa. And thank you to everyone for having us here today. I am so honored to be presenting with both Melissa and Megan, two ladies who I certainly admire and really enjoy working with. So I will start by just saying too that I am not an email expert. I'm going to share with you best practices, I think just along with Melissa and Megan. And we want to hear your ideas because it's always wonderful if you can walk away from a session learning from others. And even as a panelist, I feel the same way. So I guess I'll get started too by just telling you a little bit about what I plan to talk about today. And I'll keep this short and sweet and then give time for Megan and Melissa to also share what they use with email. But first of all, just want to explain how we communicate here in the Progressive Agriculture Foundation and how we use email to reach our audience. We'll talk about how we measure our success or how we found success using some platforms, and also what are some of those challenges that we found using email marketing? And then also just any advice when you may be looking at a new way to email your clientele, your customers, your volunteers, and share what we've learned. So I think it's just important to know a little bit about who we are here at the foundation. So I will just quickly give you an overview. I know many of you in attending here for MRASH are familiar with our program, but I think it's just a great opportunity to talk to you a little bit about who we are and who we are trying to reach with our emails. So Progressive Ag Safety Days, we are recognized now as one of the largest rural safety and health education programs for children in North America. We're very proud that we've reached more than 1.8 million to date. And our mission is to deliver, just like many of you, deliver education, training, and resources with the ultimate goal to make farm, ranch, and rural life safer and healthier for children in their communities. So our ultimate goal with our program, we want to be hands-on, we want to be fun, We want to be age appropriate and above all safe for all of the participants. So to give you just an idea of who we reach and to who we might be emailing, these little red dots all over North America represent the locations where Progressive Agriculture Safety Day was held in 2019. So that's our best data right now. We all know 2020 what happened, and we did have a lot of virtual safety days, but a best look at our program was back in 2019. So that's a quick look. So when you're looking at these dots, they indicate nearly 100,000 individuals that we reach either in youth participants or volunteers. So that's a lot of folks. That's a lot of folks that we want to try to communicate with and get our message out. So I'm going to share with you a little bit on how we do that. So who do we communicate with? Our Safety Day coordinators, they are on top of our list. Those are our boots on the ground. Those are our individuals that are out there having programs in their communities, in the schools, and really the ones that we train and guide to have a successful program. On top of that, out of that 100,000 that we reach annually, 20,000 are volunteers. Those are volunteers that lead or assistant coordinator engages with. Maybe they're coming from 4-H or FFA or farm bureaus or even some of our sponsors or other organizations within their community. Then we have our program sponsors. As you know, we are a nonprofit, so we are funded by several amazing sponsors from John Deere and Cargill and Nutrien and several other CHS that really help make our program what it is. So we have to communicate with them. And then prospective sponsors. You know, we always are trying to be appealing to those who might want to sponsor our program, our supporters and stakeholders, and then others that we meet along the way, maybe at farm shows or other events. So how we use email to reach our audience. This is just quickly how communication is just key for our organization. One thing I'll talk about most is going to be constant contact, because that's one of the systems that we use the most to deliver our emails throughout all those contacts that I just mentioned. So a monthly update is something that we do, again, every month. I think we usually aim for the first Monday of each month to get a newsletter out. And it's just very short and sweet. Tells you what's going on in the foundation. It shares also, we're able to pull from Google Alerts. That's another great opportunity. If you didn't sign up to Google Alerts, that's how you can get news on certain information. So anytime Progressive Agriculture Safety Days is mentioned, we get an alert and then we can share that with our other supporters. So that's something that happens at our monthly update. Again, people expect it. They look for that monthly update. They know it's coming once a month, and it's going to be short and sweet and give you just a quick update on what's going on. A coordinator connection newsletter is something else we share, again, with our coordinators, makes them feel special. We share with them, you know, what is going on for them as a coordinator. We might we have a newsletter coming out now. We're going to talk to them about training, how to register. We'll tell them about new props or new curriculum that's been created. So anything that's relevant to them as coordinators will come out through that newsletter. And then also various campaigns. So like Giving Tuesday, you know, if folks want to make a donation, National Volunteer Week. We told you about all those volunteers we work with. We want to send them a thank you. And then we also have been gathering emails at farm shows from interested folks at FFA convention, and we're able to communicate with them about our mission and vision. So those are just some of the ways that we use constant contact, and that has really been successful for us. But we also need to have other communication out there. So we use things like just general email. If we know that we want our coordinators to really pay attention to something that's very urgent, Sarah, our admin assistant, will send out an email to those coordinators. So that's 500. So she breaks them up into smaller groups of 100. Again, uses blind copy. So again, we're not everybody's seeing who's getting the email. So that's another best practice. And she will make sure it's really important. And a lot of times if they see it's Sarah, who they communicate with on a day-to-day basis, they will be more responsive and more apt to pay attention. We also have a talk feature it's actually called Talk, T-A-W-K, in our coordinator website. So if they're ever in there and a question emerges or they're having issues, they can communicate with us automatically. We have a PAF training center now, Thinkific, where a lot of the training information is housed. Social media, we've really found success using Hootsuite. We just started using that this year. That makes sure everything in your social media is connected. So what you're putting out on Facebook also can go out on Twitter, Instagram, and your other social media channels as well. Another thing I wanted to mention is Doodly and Toonly. So these are really great ways to create an addition to your email. So if you're looking at a fun way to tell a story, use Doodly, which is basically just hand writing out like little sketches. You don't have to be an artist. It does it for you. Or Toonly, where you can make a cartoon and make it fun and engaging. Sometimes I know we forget that adults like to have fun as well. And, you know, as Melissa pointed out, there's a lot of emails coming at them. What's going to make them open up and click and watch? Maybe it's a short little video. So keep that in mind as something you might want to adopt. And then also just ensure your contact information is always easily accessible in these emails. So if somebody is wanting to find out more or, you know, wanting to connect with you, make sure it's easy for them to find that in your email, whether you're using a campaign in Constant Contact or just a general email that's available in your signature line, your phone number, and any other ways to communicate. So measuring success as well as identifying challenges, just real quick, we'll take a look at what I always say, the good, the bad, and the ugly of Constant Contact. So let's start with the success. It's really great because you can track the number of emails sent. You can see the open rates, the bounces, those that unsubscribed. It tells you all that. You can run reports and it makes it super easy. You also have history of all your campaigns that went out. So you can go back and look, you can copy that campaign. So the newsletter that I'm putting out for my coordinators, I often will just copy it again, and then I'll go in and edit the content. So it makes it easy, same look, same feel, and less I have to do on my end. You can also sort your contacts into categories. So, you know, we have our volunteers in a category, our coordinators in a category, sponsors in a category, and just check who you want that campaign to go to. So that's pretty easy. It's also easy to use or create the email in those newsletter campaigns. When I first came on the foundation, we did use MailChimp. I thought that was a little bit more coding and stuff that I wasn't familiar with. So I thought Constant Contact was super easy. Copy and paste, add in those images, and then you're good to go. Again, I mentioned about providing the reports, and I think Constant Contact has really good tech support and customer service. When I've had an issue, I've reached out to them and I've actually been able to talk to someone and they've been able to solve my problem really easily. So that is just what I suggest as some of the successes. Also, Logan, who is actually a new hire for us earlier this year, has been really taking over a lot of our Constant Contact campaigns. And he has mentioned our open rate has been pretty well. He said the national standard is about 26%. We've been ranging in the 35 to 40%. So don't feel like you're a failure if not everybody is opening it. That's still really good when you're looking at it on the national level. But what are some of the challenges? We all have challenges there. Know that sometimes your email is going to end up in somebody's spam or junk folder. So it is always nice if they can add you as a contact. If you're going to be the one sending out that email, then you're going to be more of a chance that you're going to end up in their inbox and be right there where they need to see it. Some recipients I found might try to reply for those Constant Contact emails. They might try to reply or forward that on, and somebody replies to the forwarded newsletter, and then it goes to some weird email. I was asked to be a presenter earlier this year, and finally they did contact me. They called me, and when we found the email, it was sent to some weird email. So we don't know who it went to, but it didn't make it to the intended recipient. So you have to be careful about folks trying to reply or share your content and then them not replying to the correct person. Remember, it's pay to play. And so keep in mind, as your contacts do increase, your subscription fees may increase as well. I've noticed I've added contacts in the past, and then we've got an alert. Oh, you owe some more money because now you're up to this level. So just keep that in mind. You also might need to, have some maintenance on those lists. So you add those lists and they're super easy, but people's emails change. Sometimes you might find that they're not receiving it for certain reasons. So you have to do some additional investigating and find out why. So it is some work there. And then we also have to translate our newsletters into French because we work with coordinators in Quebec that speak and read French. So that takes a little bit more time on our end, and to make sure that those folks are receiving the correct email that they need to receive. So I'll end with some email advice for all of you, and then I'll turn things over to Melissa and Megan. But determine what is best for your organization. What are you needing for emails? What are you struggling with? That's going to help you decide on the best platform for you to use. Determine your budget. Again, some of those are pay to play, but I always say you get what you pay for sometimes. So sometimes it is worth investing a little bit of money if it's going to make your job a lot easier and get your emails noticed. Research others. So there is MailChimp. It's another option for you. Take advantage of those free trials that they have, and also make sure that there's ways that you can cancel or get out of your subscription if you're not fully happy. I always say less is more. So keep those emails short, sweet, relevant, concise. It's going, that way your intended customers, clientele, when they get something from you, they're going to be more apt to read it and pay attention. And then finally, like I mentioned, insert those images, videos, and be able to tell a story in a fun way. We all like to have fun, and that's sometimes the best way to get their attention. So I will leave my questions for later on when we do our discussion, but thank you so much for allowing me to share some of our best practices.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jana. I see you stopped sharing. So Megan, if you want to start sharing, you can. Jana, one of the best things I really liked about what you just said is that you send them out the first Monday of the month. Like, you have a day, people know when to expect it, and they know what to expect. And I think that that's really awesome. Yes, we did have a question for you in the chat, but we'll come back to it at the end in the discussion. Next up, Megan Shasau with the UMash Center, the Upper Midwest Agricultural Safety and Health Center, is going to share a little bit about how they use email, and specifically MailChimp. So Megan, I'm throwing it over to you. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you, Melissa and Jana. It's a pleasure to present and share with you all, and I'm excited to hear what comes through in the discussion later on, because like Melissa said, it's kind of an art, and it'll be nice to hear some feedback, and then also what other tips folks are using. So at the Upper Midwest Agricultural Safety and Health Center, we use MailChimp, and so that's what I'm primarily going to talk about today. I'm going to keep it pretty short because there are a ton of similarities and synergies to what we've heard from Jana. And so I'm going to point out some really specific points and then keep our conversation moving. Okay, so first and foremost, what is MailChimp? Similar to Constant Contact, MailChimp is an email delivery and email marketing platform. We have used MailChimp for years. I believe we've used it since our inception. And we've recently moved on to a paid plan. So like you heard from Jana, we had gotten to a point where we were not able to put out the content that we wanted to, or we were too high on total number of emails sent. They all have different baselines that they use. And so we pay like $40-ish a month, which for an ag center is a decent budget. And they all look kind of different, but that's a bit about what MailChimp is. And then I'll talk about some of the features that we've really leaned on and some of the options that they have as a platform. Quick and shameless plug, if you're not on our mailing list, feel free to scan and sign up. I'll probably see it, and so you'll get clout with me if that matters. But here's a little bit about what email sign up looks like for us. So I'm actually just going to pop over to our website. Something that I think about a lot with email sign up is we'll have this at outreach events. I'll talk a little bit about a different strategy we've used using a pop-up on the website. But typically when I get onto a website, I'm looking in, kind of these like sides menu type things. And so we keep ours at the very bottom and try to keep it fairly obvious. And then in other points in time, we've done kind of the homepage pop-up as well. But that's a bit about how we facilitate that process. And then I wanted to share a bit about what they end up looking like. So ignore these numbers. I'll talk a bit about them later on. But like Jana has said, the nice thing about the process that we have with MailChimp is that there is a lot of customizability. They can look similar. I know I saw Jenna's comment in the Q&A section. So something that has worked well for us in the past is being able to have some of these custom graphics. So we had a student design this graphic. And then something else that we try to do is, it's manure season, everybody. But when we talk about manure, we oftentimes use a similar graphic so people can get a bit of that, not necessarily brand familiarity because our logo is a separate entity, but people kind of expect to see this a lot when we're talking about that kind of content. These numbers over here show where people click. And so we generally see that it's most common for folks to be in this general area. So we try to always make sure that those links are correct. We do a lot of copying and pasting as well. So making sure that you don't click on 6 reasons to get the flu shot this year and end up in, like manure gas content. So these are both quick previews of what things look like from us. And then I'll also have a mobile version later on because that's been something that we've prioritized more and more in both our emails and our website because we know people are on their phones more than ever. And that's how people are accessing content and resources. So I'll talk a little bit about the analytics functionality that they have and how we tend to evaluate our own process. I would say the two that we look at the most on a day-to-day basis are percent opens and percent clicks. And we tend to benchmark those in a number of ways. So I'll talk through one example where we benchmark against ourselves. And then we'll also look at similar sectors or industries. So things like nonprofits, education, even government to an extent. And so there are usually fairly salient ways to see if you're above, right about where you should be, or below where the analytics might like to look like. So for us, here's a quick look at a graphic that we've worked with one of our evaluation students on. So this is a little bit different in that we're looking at some totals. So looking at total email links, subscribers, percent growth, things like that, to kind of tell the story of the communication we're doing. And so now I'm going to talk a bit about one example. So we benchmarked ourselves against ourselves with our newsletter. And so we were seeing that the newsletter that we send out, which we do quarterly, wasn't getting the highest opens, clicks, interaction, and engagement. And that caused us to pause a bit as a communications team because it's something we put a ton of time and effort and thought into. And so something that we did was interact with our stakeholders and our audience to think about what it is that they like to see, how we can present things. And then we went ahead and did a modification. So here is on the left, you can see this is what our newsletter used to look like. So it would still come out for MailChimp, but it came out as a PDF that you then opened, which worked really well for printing newsletters, for example. And that was the original impetus behind that. And then, as years went by, I think it was close to 9 years later, we started to think about how are people engaging with the newsletter and using it. And so that's when we moved over here. This is a couple of screenshots where we're now really using a MailChimp template and using more graphics, images of people, and content that's just a little more accessible right on the screen, as opposed to having to click out and go into a PDF. And so when we were looking at some of these examples, we were seeing that the open rates weren't high, the click rates weren't high, and doing some of the more up-to-date visuals and also funneling content into what we heard from our audiences desired really helped us to have email communications that are more effective. Oops, back one. So this is for MailChimp specifically, but these apply to a lot of platforms, and I'll try to kind of segment those out. But some pros with MailChimp are that their templates are really great. I am not a graphic designer. I am not a web designer. I am not good at coding. So the templates are a really nice tool if we're in a pinch and I need to do the emails, which disclaimer, I don't. So that's a really nice feature to have. And then I had one of these links open to just pop over. They have all kinds of here's what our landing page looks like, but they have all kinds of templates that you can do, which is really nice if it's not your skill set. And I know a lot of organizations tend to be limited in that. Another group of features that are really nice are some of the functionality. So something that you can do within MailChimp is do a survey. So you can ask your audience, are you seeing what you want to see? How can we improve this? There are automation features. So typically we'll do a full review process, and then an email actually goes out, the next day or the following week. So you can automate things like that as well. There's even more automation, but I won't go into that. You can get insights. So for example, I know Jana mentioned Hootsuite. We also use Hootsuite. And I know they do something where they'll give you recommendations on the best time to send out a tweet, for example. And MailChimp does something similar where based on how you interact with your audience, you'll just get some of those tips, which is a nice feature to have. And then they also have the marketplace. So you can buy templates, you can even do web development, all kinds of stuff like that. Something else that's been nice is just the visuals and graphics. We've been seeing that people are really liking icons and kind of catchy graphics. And a lot of that is available within the platform itself if you're not able to do the full graphic design process. And then some of the most important things to us have been the segmentation. So you can have your full audience, you can have, a sector that are your dairy folks or that are media. And that way you can really customize your content for the audience. Something else that is nice is we talked kind of high level about this reports that they have. So for each campaign you send out, you can do them over time. And then you can also do things like A/B testing pretty easily. So that can be nice for figuring out what works with your audience. And then the audience information, so you can see that segmentation. So who's in media, who's in Minnesota, who's not. That's all really helpful in thinking about customizing what it is you're talking about. Some cons, we know that on the user or on our audience end, our emails can have a tendency to end up in like promotional folders, occasionally spam folders. That's obviously not where we want them to be. So that is a bit of a challenge. Depending on your plan, there are limits to your subscribers, your total number of sends. So kind of being strategic about that. It's not a bad nudge either, so that you're not really overdoing it with your audience either. And audience information is also a con. So, if things are input well, you have a ton of information about each of your audience members. But if people just do, the minimum that's required, which honestly is what I do, you're really getting a lot less information and it's harder to do those segmenting activities. And I'll just wrap up with a few tips that I think about and that I know that we use and maybe will be good starters for when we get into our discussion later. But earlier we talked a bit about the pop-ups and having accessible subscriber buttons. So like today, I just threw a QR code on and I learned how to do that yesterday. So it's accessible. But having like QR codes at outreach events, having it in a, easy to navigate spot on the website, doing some of those mini campaigns. And then the segmented audiences piece. So, work coming out with a new dairy resource. So who wants to see that? Like, it's really going to be a segment of our audience, even though everyone will see and get access to it. And then as a part of that segmented audience, something that you can do is a bit of a subscriber cleanup. So, we always kind of battle limits, and something we're able to do is look and see who hasn't been opening for years, who hasn't been engaging for years, and then go ahead and unsubscribe them. And so that keeps the most engaged people. So your indirect benefit is also that you have more space, and the people that you keep are the ones that are opening, the ones that are engaging. And so those rates do tend to go up as well, which isn't always the intended effort. And then finally, I talked about this a little bit earlier, but making sure that things are mobile friendly. We've been doing a lot of thinking and work about how we make our website mobile friendly, how our emails look on a mobile version. So over here, again, I just have a screenshot. So thinking about like what do the subject lines read like? How does the scroll functionality work? Things like that, because we know people are more online than ever. And that is where I'm going to leave things at today. And I look forward to discussing with everybody later. And at this point, it is Melissa's time to share a bit about her email marketing.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Megan. Two things that I really recognize that you talked about. One was you showed what you started with and where you're at today. And I think that's important for everyone to realize and know and understand that if you haven't been doing emails, or if you want to start something new, like, don't think that you're going to be perfect right away. It's a process, and it takes some time to get to where you really want to be. And you're always improving. Like, if we looked at Megan's stuff again in 3 years, it would be different again. The other thing is, yes, you're right, Megan, more people than ever are on their phones, and having mobile friendly emails is now more important than ever. So thank you so much. I am going to, share my screen so that I can talk a little bit. And so, my name is Melissa Pluckelman. I'm with the Children's Center. We also use Constant Contact to send out our emails. And I'm specifically going to talk today about how we use MRASH emails to reach media. So we know that people are still reading hard copy newspapers and magazines. We know that farmers love their newspapers, but we know that the process of writing stories and getting them into newspapers and magazines have really changed. The way that media and kind of work now is they used to have reporters, editors, photographers. Now they have a skeleton crew, and maybe one person is the reporter, the photographer, and the editor. So if we can send them a press release that's ready for them to just copy and paste and plop into their publication, they're more likely to use our press release. But the question is, how do we get that press release in front of media? And the way to do that is through email. And, I just want to tell you what we used to do is Scott Heiberger, who was the communications manager at the Children's Center, he used to just write the press release, get a photo, put it all in an email, and blind carbon copy every one of the media that we wanted to send the press release to. It worked fine. We got it to media and they would put it in their publications, but there were just some challenges. It wasn't a fancy template. It wasn't very eye-catching. Sometimes because of that, it would get missed and ignored. And the other thing is we had no way of kind of recording who was actually opening our emails and who was actually clicking on our links and who was utilizing those press releases. So we started to talk and we said, we already have Constant Contact. Why can't we use that to reach our media? And so that is what we decided to do. But we realized also that, like, in order to do this Constant Contact and in order to send out to the lists of people that we wanted to reach, we needed to have an emailing list. And sometimes that's the most challenging part, is how do you find the email addresses that you want to send to? And so just a couple tips is, when you're at events, when you're in public and you're talking to people, don't be afraid to hand out your business card, and don't be afraid to ask them for their business card. I realize again that a lot of us are virtual now and we haven't been to many in-person events, but as we start going back, get those business cards. Now, remember though, when you get home, it is so important that you then input that contact into your list. At the Children's Center, we try to have one or 2 people that really update that list and keep track of it. So when we get back home, sometimes we hand off our business cards that we've collected to someone else and they put them in that list for us. And it takes that person a little bit more time, but that's not bad because that person knows that list inside and out and they have ownership over it and they take pride in making sure that that's a successful mailing list. So that's one way to kind of keep your mailing list up to date. And Constant Contact, which is the platform we use, is great because you can just put your contacts right into there and it keeps them all updated. You can export them into an Excel document if you need to. If you want to download your list, you can do that. So that works really well. But other ways to really keep track of your lists, we personally use a RedCap survey. So we go ahead and put the information into that RedCap survey. And then when we want to send out an email, we export that list from RedCap and we put it into Constant Contact. And the other great thing is you can download an entire list into Constant Contact. You can take a list that maybe only has 1 to 2 updated people, but it's a list of 1,000 people, and you can put it into Constant Contact and it will sort through it for you. And it will tell you like 2 people have been updated, 1 person has been added. And so you're not like getting these multiple emails, but it's updating them for you every time you're going to send out an email. So that's really nice. So just figure out what works for you and use your list that way. And just remember, update, update, update. That's how you keep your list up to date and really reach the audience you want. We know right now, if we look at the economy, people are moving jobs. They are moving areas. They're switching. They're going virtual, everything. And so you have to kind of watch when you get a report back from these platforms that tell you who opened your email or who's bounced or who's it didn't go to. You might want to look at that list and realize for us, the Ag Review is and the Wisconsin Farmer are 2 of our top media relationships that we have. And so if I'm constantly talking to Jane Doe at the Country Today, and all of a sudden that bounces back to me, I need to just maybe do a quick Google search and see if she left the Country Today. I need to find a new contact there and I need to update my list. Sometimes it's just an email address like info@newspaper.org. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's still getting that press release in front of the media like we need to. But it's important that we update our lists. And it takes some time, but really there's a great reward to that. And then the last thing, Jana and Megan both talked about this, invite subscribers. On our webpage, there's a place for subscribers to sign up to our newsletters and our press releases. And that takes the individual back to our RedCap survey. So they put in their own name, their email address, and their zip code. So we know nothing's spelled wrong and it automatically populates, which is so simple. And I actually had in my presentation here to talk about UMash and how they have a pop-up right on their webpage. So if you go to their webpage and you're on there for longer than 30 seconds, something pops up and says, hey, have you subscribed to our email list? And that's just another wonderful way to get subscribers and keep your list updated. So then the next question is, why would you use a tool? Why would you use Constant Contact, MailChimp, HubSpace, whatever it is? And one of the reasons is because, as both Jana and Megan mentioned, they have great templates. And Jenna, you're right. Sometimes the templates seem overused and you see the same one coming in over and over. Constant Contact I really like because it's easy for me to add the personal touches. I can add our logo. I can change the color scheme to be whatever our brand colors are. And I really like that. The other reason we use Constant Contact is because of the contacts, because it sorts them out so well and helps me keep our contact list up to date. And you can do a quick overview and see how many people have been on or how many people are subscribed, who your most engaged are. It's really helpful in that way to me. The other thing is the reporting. You know, it sends us a report back after every email that we send. We get a quick update, like a couple of days after we send it, and then we get a more thorough one a week after we send out an email, and we can go in anytime up to years later and look back at who opened those emails and who clicked on what. So that's extremely nice. The other thing is brand consistency. So if you look, these are 3 different emails that we did send out, And the top one there, the roll bar rebate saves Wisconsin farmer more than money. That was a press release that we sent out to our Wisconsin media. And every time we send out a press release, right there on top is our logo. It's got our brand colors and it's consistent. Now, Constant Contact does cost us a little bit of money, but we're okay with that because of the reward it gives us, because we can have that brand consistency, because it's eye appealing to our audience, and because we can report back our findings. For us, we know that if we pay money in advance, we get a 30% discount on our bills. And so we pay about $45 a month to use Constant Contact. And the other thing is, when you start to use a platform, the question is, well, what does success really look like? What do you want to see? And what's really great is, like I said, you get this report back. So this report specifically, you can see that I sent 87 emails. I had an open rate of 39.1%. And I can watch that and I can see, is our open rate going up or down? Am I doing something right? Does something need to change? Personally, I like a little bit more eye-appealing report. So I create a secondary report that I can send back to our evaluation team and to my managers. But it's so easy to make this eye-appealing report because I have all the information right there in front of me. The other great thing with Constant Contact is you can see, and Jana talked about this as well, it tells you what the average industry rates are for emails sent out that month of that year. So you can really compare to the industry rates and see if you're on track. There are challenges, just as Jana and Megan mentioned. Every platform that you have, or every job or task that you do, is going to have a few challenges. For one thing, who has the time? Who has the time to make sure that your brand is up to date, your colors are good, your email is, consistent? How do you get it to the people? All those things. But I think in the end, the reward for working through these challenges is worth it. The other thing that I want to say about Constant Contact is, one of my challenges is that if your email bounces back more than twice, so maybe they're out of the office or something, if your email bounces back more than twice, then that person gets suspended. And you actually have to go in and unsuspend each person. And then if they get a bounce back one more time, they're permanently suspended. And that's a big challenge for me, because some of those people I know are working, they just might be on vacation. Another one, I talked about this already a little bit, is the cost. What I would recommend to anyone who wants to do a platform is take advantage of the free trials. So HubSpot, Mail Genius, MailChimp, Reach Mail, Constant Contact. If you go on those, you can usually find a free trial. So you can try it. Try some different platforms and see which one works for you before you decide if you want to budget actual dollars to do this. So just a little bit of advice, if you're looking to do some emailing with your audience, define your audience first. Really figure out who they are and start a list. Create a template that showcases your brand. You can use their templates, but make sure you use your colors, your brand, your logo, etc. Set a budget, know what you want to spend, and talk, before you even send out an email, talk about what will your successes look like. How many people need to open your email and need to click on your links for it to be successful to you? Practice with different subject lines. Constant Contact does help you write effective subject lines, so that's nice. And then just jump in and go for it. So that's my advice to each one of you as you start using email, or maybe as you try to improve your emails that you're already using. There's my contact. If you need to connect with me, feel free to contact me outside of this. I'm always happy to talk about this. I am going to stop sharing if I can figure out how to do that. Guys, I might not be as good as Jenna and Megan. Somebody unmute and tell me how to stop sharing. Oh, I see it. Stop share. There we go. Okay, and as I said, we do want to make this a roundtable. I realize that we're a little bit over on time, because of the last segment and everything that's coming up. I'm not exactly sure what time now we're supposed to end. So I think maybe a 7 to 10 minute discussion, and then we're kind of going to cut it off. But Josie, if you could please share, thank you so much. here is what we want to do, guys. I'm going to kind of go back through this chat a little bit and see what other questions maybe have come in. But Jenna, if you wouldn't mind answering Catherine's question, and Megan, maybe you have some tips too, but her question was, are you using templates when you send emails that you can put links in? So maybe talk about your template that you choose and how you add links. And then we'll start with our chat storms.
Absolutely. So yes, Catherine, and I did send an example you can see in the chat where one of our last monthly updates. So you will see that we do add links. We add sometimes images. I even shared something that we just sent out with FFA, another campaign we sent out to the FFA advisors we talked with had a video in that showed all the data we collected from the FFA members there. Instead of just putting graphs, we made a cute little video. So short, sweet, to the point, but then it really showed, hey, 65% of the kids said that they want to have a progressive agriculture safety day. Well, the success was we had a few applications come in from those advisors. So for next year. So that's pretty exciting. So yes, add links. And then there's always an option to read more. Sometimes you want to give them a little teaser. So I mentioned the Google alerts where we'll pick up where our safety day mentions are. So maybe we put, 280 children were reached at a safety day here, and then there's a click to read more. So if you're really interested to find out more, you can click, but maybe you're happy just seeing that little paragraph about it. So yes, definitely templates. I feel that Constant Contact's easy to add in links and other media.
Megan, did you have anything to add to that?
I think they're all pretty similar, but yes, MailChimp allows that as well. So when I had that image up that had the click spots, they're always kind of consistent. It's typically like images and color bolded text. And then, we typically copy campaigns, update links, and it's pretty straightforward.
Another question that Catherine asked is, how much time do you spend on this? For me, Constant Contact is super easy when I'm sending out a press release. Scott Heiberger writes all of our press releases. He is the brains behind the writing. All I have to do is copy and paste it into the template I already have. I send him a test. He looks through, makes sure my links all work, and then we send it out. So for us, one press release maybe takes me 30 minutes. It's really, really simple for us to use. Jana, Megan, how much time do you spend on an email?
I'll just jump in. One thing that we found really easy is between our staff. Well, first of all, we hired somebody that this is kind of their baby now. So that makes it easy that they're the person that's going to be sending out these campaigns, but we all have to contribute, right? So we use Teams, we use Microsoft Teams, and we do have a channel where he will put, the next monthly update, and then we contribute to it. So we let him know, hey, we want this mentioned, and maybe it's a link. I think I write a column every month. He shares that safety and health column. We'll find a link. We'll maybe get something in Google Alerts, or we will add something. We kind of keep that running list for him, and it makes it easy for him to put that together. And then he'll give us a last call like, hey, folks, email newsletters going out on Monday. Is this what everybody wants? Is there anything I'm missing? And we just kind of work as a team from there.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. And I don't do the emails. Our web designer does these, but the just kind of regular ones where we're spending out a single spotlight story or a single checklist, or it's really focused in on a certain topic, they're pretty quick. So similar, about 30 minutes, goes through a review process. The only ones that are a little bit different is when we do a newsletter, and that's a different template. They have a lot more graphics and content and linking. But in general, it's a pretty time-effective way to do some outreach and engagement.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, everyone, we want to hear from you. So we're going to do a chat storm. I almost said a chitter. I don't know. Anyway, a chat storm. And so Josie in a second is going to click to our next slide. We're going to ask you a question. We ask that you type your answer in, but don't push enter until we say go. So Josie, go ahead and click to the next slide. We want everyone to answer this question. Do you want to use email more? So yes or no. And then what is one question you have about using email to reach your audience? So really focused on audience. So everyone go ahead and type, do you want to use email more? What is one question you still have about how to reach your audience? I'm going to give you about 30 seconds. I'm going to stop talking and then we'll all push enter at the same time. I'm a very impatient person. That wasn't quite 30 seconds, but I'm hopeful that everyone has typed in their answer. So on the count of 3, go ahead and push enter. 1, 2, 3, enter. I love it. Thanks, everyone. I know that we can't really read through all of these so fast, but I'm seeing a lot of people are saying like, yes, they want to do more. And I see that there are some great questions on here. Jenna Gibbs, I'm going to call on you. I'm going to ask you, sorry, I just saw that you said for your donors. Will you please unmute and wait, can you do that if you're maybe you can't do that if you're an attendee. We had this great plan to have you guys chat with us, but now I'm thinking maybe you can't. Oh, bummer. Well, we have a lot of answers.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, good, perfect.
Yeah. So
Good.
Melissa, we had a
How
fun.
to reach your donors.
Oh yeah, we had a fundraiser, and we do our fundraisers over social media. We do not use email, but I think after people give us money on social media, when you give like $200 to someone for a cause, you want to see what happens with that money. So when we do fundraising in the future, we want to then send a newsletter to the people that gave us money to say, here's the good work in agricultural safety we did with your money, and actually follow up. So when people donate the money, they have the option to put in their email address so that they can receive a follow-up report about what we did with their donated cash.
Awesome. Yeah, good point. That is excellent. That's a good way to reach your donors and to thank them. Jana's reading.
Sorry.
Yep, okay.
I'm looking through. I want to pick on someone as well. All right. I had to ask my girl, Ellen Dyson. So Ellen, do you have any advice for us about this question? Do you want to use your emails more? And any question that you have about reaching your audience?
Oh, you're asking me personally?
Yeah.
Yes. And we have a database that is it was not an opt-in database, it was a purchase database. And so we use that. It is just farmers and ranchers. It isn't we aren't talking to safety professionals, or we're talking directly to that cohort. And I just need to know, I would love to have advice on which platform keeps more emails out of folks' junk. And if we can get them to open it, we can ask them to put we can ask them to add us as a valued contact or whatever that is. But unless they open it, we don't. And we don't have great open rates because it's a cold call. It's a cold email. We have not curated, well, we have to some degree, but we haven't curated it to the degree where, each email, we get a few more opens because we take those out that opt out. But anyway, I would love to know more about, platforms that people have seen will keep more of these out of the junk mail.
Ellen, I love that answer. And you're inspiring me. And I don't know if Megan and Melissa are thinking the same, that this almost requires a part 2 of our session, where maybe we can get with the folks that are putting out these emails, like Logan for me, and Megan had mentioned her web designer, to maybe give some of those troubleshooting tips, because I know Logan has helped me a lot with some of that, those things that I hadn't been able to solve on my own before he came on board. So I like being able to kind of solve some of these problems as well, maybe in another session.
Okay, and then I saw one that I wanted to talk about briefly. Kristen, you had said, do you include more than one topic in a single email or limit each email to one? So if we're able to unmute Kristen, she can jump in.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a student. I'm not part of an organization currently sending anything out, but I'm just trying to think about what's most effective when when you're thinking about open rates or, the idea of keeping it short and sweet, keeping it limited because long emails, I know when I open a long email, I kind of glaze over and I'm not sure what to look at first. So I'm wondering how you balance how frequently you send an email out with how much content you put in it. If you're only sending once a month, do you put more than one thing in, or do you try to just limit everything to one topic to keep it shorter?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question and discussion point. And I think this question is why I am always saying it's an art, because everyone has their own philosophy in a sense. I'll let some of my fellow panelists answer after me. Something that we do is we do a bit of both. So we'll do an email that's about only one thing and it's short. And we'll do ones where it's like, catch up on all things UMass. Here's what's happening. Here are new people. Here's what we've been up to. A little hello from someone in leadership. So I don't know if there's a one best way. It's probably about, what do you want to accomplish? Do you want your audience to be aware of one specific resource? Probably best to keep it short and snappy. I think I saw Jenna in the comments talking about how she falls for the catchy email taglines. And I'll just mention two specifically that always grab me. One is like when it says 7 ways to do whatever it is. I'm a junkie for those. And then something that we did when we did our email cleanup is we'll use this is kind of twisted, but we'll use kind of cryptic ones, and it'll say like, are you there? Or sorry to see you go, things like that. That's a little off topic, but Melissa, Jana, anything to add in regards to, picking one subject, doing several topics?
I will just add, I think it is just wise, like we mentioned already, about keeping it short and sweet. As far as the one subject, maybe you can have more than one, but just maybe so they all connect and you're not talking about several things that maybe don't make sense. Maybe that's where you might lose your audience. But yeah, keep it short, sweet. Those fun taglines are good. Great graphics, something where they want to learn more. They want to click and learn more.
Excellent. You guys all had so many questions and we had more discussion questions to do, but we really have run out of time. This is an awesome topic. And I really loved just being able to visit with everyone, share with everyone, just learn a little bit. That's what roundtables are all about. And I'm so glad that we got to network together. If you have more questions, feel free to email any one of us individually or, connect with others and just kind of discuss how you do email and why you do email, because it's not going away. And it's great to be able to utilize a good tool. So we will wrap up there and throw it back over to Josie. Thank you to everyone who joined us in this roundtable. And thank you to everyone who shared information today.
Awesome. Thank you, Melissa, Jana, and Megan. That was super interesting. There was a lot happening.